think we're live now. I think everything's good here. We'll just give a second for the audio here. Looks like it's good. Testing. Yep. Looks like the levels are all going up there. So, okay. So I think we're good to go for the live here. I will spend, as always, just the first minute or two here to just kind of make sure everything's good. Something about the bit rate here, but it seems that goes every time, and now it says good connection. So I think we're all good. Hopefully everything's good. The audio, like I said, looks to be good. That's the only issue that sometimes happens. But yeah, anyways, looks all good. All right, so welcome then again to another Let's Talk Television episode here, episode 8, and I do apologize for doing this one. It's a little later than what I would like to do. I did really want to catch up on a couple shows though, right before basically going live. To be able to talk about them, especially Hacks, right? So I watched the premiere of Hacks, just a little bit before this one, before I got on here. And I really wanted to watch it, though, and be able to talk about it for this live. And so that's kind of what it is. So anyways, that's what it is. So Let's Talk Television, episode 8 here. And it's been a couple weeks again, right? So it's almost turned into kind of like a bi-weekly show. I think I've stuck to that schedule now for a few episodes. So I guess that's what we'll stick to. I want to do week to week, but there just isn't enough, stuff going. Like, there's enough shows, that's for sure. It's overwhelming right now, the amount of shows that I'm, I would like to say keeping up with, but I'm really falling behind on some of them. But I'm trying to keep up with so many shows. But there's not as much news, coming out right now. Like, just the last 2 weeks to me has been, like, dead. I mean, there's been really not a lot of news, not a lot of kind of buzz to talk about. And so that's kind of what I'm struggling with. I want to do this show every week, but if I don't have enough to talk about, then, what am I going to do here? So anyway, so I'm trying to balance that, and hopefully I'm trying to do a Walking Dead theme episode coming up when Dead City launches. So hopefully that one, we'll be able to go into some stuff there and then talk about that stuff. So anyways, just not too big of a main topic this week, to be honest, for Let's Talk Television. It is mainly based on, one of the shows I am going to go in and talk about for this week, and that is Your Friends and Neighbors, right? So the new John Hamm Apple TV Plus series, right, that just debuted, I think, 4 days ago, 5 days ago or something, last Friday, and it's Wednesday. So, so it's kind of themed around that, and then just by extension, I want to talk a little bit more about Apple TV Plus and what they're doing right now. I think is really, really cool, really impressive, and so I want to talk a little bit about that. So we'll go into that, but yeah, not too long of a topic this week. Just wanted to touch on that stuff. But first, as always, we'll start with This Week in TV. So what are some of the shows that I have been watching? And as this goes, it is 2 weeks since the last episode, so I'll talk about everything that I've watched within those 2 weeks. All right. So This Week in TV. So, just before I get into the new shows, I am still watching Deadwood Season 3. I'm almost finished Season 3, so do want to go ahead and I'll finish that. I also want to make a couple, videos probably. I'm not sure if I'll do a review maybe, but I do want to do a tier list for Deadwood for some of the characters and that kind of thing. So I do want to do some stuff when I finish the show, and I'm very close. Only a few episodes left, so I do want to definitely get to that. But the thing with that is, again, like, there's so many new shows that are coming out. It's overwhelming. And so I'm falling behind on those shows, so I got to catch up on them. And then that doesn't leave a lot of time to finish Deadwood, and it doesn't have that same sense of urgency. So anyways, that's what it is. All right, so first off is Yellow Jackets Season 3 on Showtime. And I am, again, talking about all these shows and kind of falling behind. I did fall behind a little bit on Yellow Jacket Season 3, and I don't want to dive too much into this because I am going to be putting up my review, hopefully either tomorrow or probably Friday. It'll end up being where I'm going to review like the whole season of Season 3, and to be honest, I still have not seen the last couple episodes, which I'll probably be watching either tonight or tomorrow, and then doing that review. So this is a chunk of episodes. I think it's like maybe episode 3 to 7 or something like that, that I watched within the last week or so. trying to get caught up and trying to, because the finale just aired on, was it Sunday night, I believe, right? Was it Sunday night? I'm actually going to look into that just to make sure that I'm on the right thing here. Was it Sunday night? Or was it even the Sunday before last Sunday night? I can't remember here. Okay, so let's look at this. Let's look at this. If it'll load, right? If it'll still load. I'm forgetting when this was, when this finale was. Let's see. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. Nope. All right. Nope. That's okay. It's not loading very fast. All right. So season 3 here. The finale was the 13th. Yeah. So it was just Sunday, right? Yeah. So anyways, or Friday, I guess, because technically it was like premiering Fridays as well or something like that. But anyways, so the finale was just Sunday, and so I'm trying to catch up on it. And I will say, the first 2 episodes of season 3 of Yellow Jackets had to have been like the worst by far, honestly. Like, I think every episode that I've watched since episode 2 has been like, miles better. I mean, it's nothing, groundbreaking or anything like that, but it's just way better than the first 2 episodes, which to me is really unfortunate because, I did my review, for those first couple episodes on the channel, and I talked about that in Let's Talk Television, and I was not impressed, to be honest with you. And I feel like I liked Yellow Jacket season 2 more than a lot of other people did, and so, and I really liked season 1, and so, just to see the start of season 3, some people were like, basically calling it quits on the show, giving up on it after these first couple episodes. And I was like, I don't know, but I'm kind of close. Like, if this is going to be the whole season. But anyways, I'm really glad to say that that is not what the season is. I think it's been, at least these last couple episodes, I think it's episode 4 and 5 and maybe 6 there too, have been pretty good. I mean, for Yellow Jacket, it's been pretty good. So, just positive stuff, and we'll have to see again for my review. My thoughts may change depending on how this finale goes and how they wrap things up for this season. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of moments, though, and again, I'll get into this in my review, I guess, so I don't want to go too far, but there are a lot of moments in, this season of things that come up and just, plot points where I'm thinking, damn, what is missing here, right? Like, what is missing where, we see some of these things that were played out in season 1, and I'm trying, kind of, as I'm watching, I'm remembering some stuff that was, that we saw in season 1, and I feel like they're trying to recapture that a little bit here with this season, and it just is lacking. Like, there's just something missing there, which is a huge mystery to me because, at least the main writers of the show, the showrunners, Bart Nickerson, Ashley Lyle, Jonathan Lisco as well coming in for, I think, the last couple seasons. They're all the same people, right? Like, they are all the same, and they're still a part of this. And for some reason, they just haven't really been able to recapture some of that magic. But I will say, I do think there are some glimpses of it this season that I've seen so far. And so I'm really wondering if by the end of this season, I really can say that this is better than season 2, because right now, where I'm at in season 3, I think it is. Like, I don't know. I think the teenager timeline, some of the season 2 stuff I did like a lot, especially the winter. I felt like that was a really good kind of setting at that time, where this season is, basically in the springtime, and I think there's a bit of kind of a time jump here now happening. But besides that, I feel like I don't know, it just feels a little bit more like season 1 to me in season 3 so far in Yellow Jackets. So anyways, those are just my thoughts. Again, I will get into more detail, obviously, in my review that I do for the season coming out in the next couple of days, and I'll finish the finale and then kind of see my thoughts on it at that point. All right, so the next is The Studio, Season 1 on Apple TV Plus, and of course this is the Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg new show, right, on Apple TV Plus, new comedy, and it's Seth Rogen, Catherine Hahn, Ike Barinholtz, and who else? And then obviously a massive slew of guest stars in every episode. But I think that's pretty much the main cast, right? Is those three, and there's a fourth too that I'm forgetting. I think it's the young actress there. But anyways. So this got a huge amount of buzz and praise, just out of the gates. I think it had its premiere at a festival, I want to say. It was the South by Southwest or something. And a lot of people, saw this and really got on board with it, got a lot of buzz and everything. And I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of a little mixed on this, even though I really have enjoyed it so far. I am a little mixed in the way that, especially the way that episode 1 was received to me, where, everybody kind of lauded it as like, oh, this is brilliant. This is, really effective takedown of Hollywood and, the kind of stuff that they're doing. And to me, as someone who watched HBO's The Franchise last year, which got canceled after one season, I was thinking to myself, I don't know if it was the same people, but there was a good chunk of people who said that show, The Franchise, didn't do that, and it wasn't effective, and it was just kind of dumb, right? And it wasn't kind of the smart critique of Hollywood and these things that the studio is trying to depict as well. And I don't see it. Like, I don't see, to me, at the very least, or at the very most, maybe, they're on the same wavelength here. Like, neither show, I don't think you could say, is the most brilliant, deep cutting, satire or, criticism or commentary on Hollywood and, the stuff that they're trying to depict here. I even think The Franchise might be better at it, actually, than the studio is so far. And so just kind of annoys me a little bit, to the fact that I heard some of this stuff about The Franchise, and now all of a sudden the studio is getting all this praise and acclaim, which it deserves. I'm going to get to that. I do really enjoy it. But to me, there's not a huge difference between the two shows in that aspect. And so, I don't know, could be that Seth Rogen is attached to the studio, and you have guys like Barinholtz, Bryan Cranston. You have all these big names, all the the meta stuff going on there. Whereas The Franchise, you had some lesser known actors involved, except for Iannucci, right? I mean, he was probably the biggest name, maybe Himesh Patel, part of the cast as well. There were some, lesser known kind of actors in there who were really great, obviously. But I think maybe that could be the case here. I also, The Franchise was very much focused on superhero movies and franchise movie making, whereas the studio is a little less, it's a little more broad in that way. But anyways, I do love this comparison because these are two shows that are kind of in the same vein that have come out within the last 6 months of each other. And so I just think, you have to compare them at some point. And for me, watching The Franchise, and I think enjoying it a lot more than most people, I think it's definitely worth talking about. Now, in terms of beyond that and the other aspects, I think the second episode actually is unbelievable of the studio, the oneer, right, where it's so brilliant, right, because the whole episode is about getting this one take of Sarah Polley, who is the director of Women Talking recently, and so she's in the episode playing herself and trying to get this one take. Well, meanwhile, the whole episode of the show is in one take, and the whole thing, I do think there's a couple cuts actually here and there that I tried to pick out, but besides that, it's shot in, effectively one take, right? And so it's kind of this meta thing of, they're trying to get this oneer, while meanwhile we're watching a oneer happen live. So just really brilliant, and obviously amazing that they're able to pull some of this stuff off that they are. I mean, yeah, it's just amazing, right? And then episode 3, I thought, The Note with Ron Howard. To me, that episode is really funny. There's some really great humor. Seth Rogen is playing it really, really well, and obviously, writing a lot of it. And I can tell, I think a lot of it is improv as well from some of these actors. So, it's really funny. But is that episode, the deepest critique or commentary on Hollywood and, stuff like that that's going on and studio movie making? not really, right? Like, not really. Like, that's not, it was more so going for the laughs and the comedic side of it rather than that commentary, which to me is just interesting because that's kind of, how episode 1 was approached by a lot of people, where I don't think episode 3 is necessarily, doing that. And even episode 2 isn't really doing that in that same way. So anyways, I don't think it has to be that though either, right? Like, I think it can just be a really funny show. Of course, Seth Rogen's hilarious, and he great comedy writer, right? And Evan Goldberg, you have to recognize him as well. It could be just a really funny, effective comedy show set in Hollywood with this character that Seth Rogen's playing as this new producer, right at this, Continental Studios, they're called. And that could be really funny, I don't think it has to be necessarily that satire or that critique on Hollywood, right? And so I think it, we'll see. We'll see what more episodes have in store. Maybe, more of the episodes are geared towards that, and we just haven't seen that yet. So I'm really looking forward to the rest of this. If anything else, I mean, that episode, The Oner, like, that's going to be in conversation for my best episodes of the year. Like, that is just so impressive what they were able to do, and it's hilarious too. So many funny moments, just like laugh out loud moments towards the end of the episode there for me. So yeah, just some really great stuff, and I will talk about this later, but again, this is another one of those original, projects from Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg that just feels like not really much else on TV right now, and that's something Apple TV is able to give them. So I'm going to talk about that later, but did want to mention that here as well. So yeah, really looking forward to the rest of the studio, the first season here. Hopefully it gets more seasons. We'll see. But yeah, so really, really like it so far. I just don't know that the way that it was praised and the way that it was kind of advertised, I'm not sure I'm really seeing that come to fruition quite yet. But again, time will tell. All right. So next, I want to talk about Your Friends and Neighbors. Season 1 here, the first 2 episodes premiered just a few days ago, right, on Apple TV+. The new series starring Jon Hamm, his first time, really, being back. I think he was on Fargo, right, the last season. But, basically his first time back as kind of a lead starring role in a prestige drama TV show that's going to go on multiple seasons, right? Fargo was only just a limited run, an anthology season. So this is his return essentially to prestige television in this show on Apple TV Plus. And man, is he really great in this. You definitely see kind of shades of Don Draper in this character. I think it was very clear, or maybe they do some sort of improv and that stuff too with Jon Hamm, but it was pretty clear to me that this role was almost written for him. I mean, this just seems very, centered on Jon Hamm himself, the way that he plays this character. Again, the similarities to something like a Don Draper, where, and I guess just Jon Hamm's strengths in general as being kind of that, he just really adds that comedic flair to a lot of lines where some other actors would, maybe just deliver them really seriously or really earnestly. And he just has this ability, maybe like just his facial expressions and his reactions. He's just funny. Like, he's just really adds that kind of comedic sense to a lot of this stuff. And this is a perfect show for that. Like, the tone of the show just lends itself perfectly to that. Because, and I'm still really trying to figure this out, like, I think I still would consider the show a drama at the end of the day, because there's a lot of, plot, and, it's obviously the crime aspect of it is coming in there. So I think I would still categorize it as a drama, but I've seen some, things that say it's a dark comedy, and yeah, like it kind of is, right? Like, that is the tone of the show, is it's kind of this serious, dramatic kind of stuff happening, and there's a story, there's a plot there. But at the same time, a lot of these moments are funny, like, and it's to the point where, like, something happens, something plays out on screen, and it takes you a couple moments, and you're like, oh, that's hilarious. Like, just being in this position, it's kind of, through the inner monologue, he kind of makes comments like that. I think it's the second episode here where he's sitting on the floor of Olivia Munn's character, right, her kid's bedroom, right, and waiting for him to fall asleep in his race car bed or whatever. And he even says, like, how insane is this that I'm laying or sitting on the floor in this random person's house with somebody else's kid, trying to get them to sleep. And so it's these little moments where, again, it's like, it's kind of this kind of nice moment where he's, trying to help this kid. And then you're like, wait, this is not even his house. This is not his kid. And he's just here, because he's, basically, sleeping with, Olivia Munn's character, the mom. So, it's just these kind of little comedic moments that I think are really well timed and really well thought out. So, this is Jonathan Tropper, by the way, who is the showrunner. He wrote the first 3 episodes here, and I believe he was behind Banshee as well, if I'm correct. I think that was one of his bigger shows. I think he did a couple other shows. I got to look into that as well, but I think that's where he's mainly from, is Banshee, and I do really want to watch that show as well. Have not seen it. So, anyways, I think his, and the dialogue in the first episode I thought was really well done. Again, the delivery from Jon Hamm with a lot of these lines is what kind of adds that comedic sense to it, where you have this kind of quippy, really fast kind of dialogue. It's kind of brisk pacing as well to the show, and it just really adds it. So Jon Hamm is really great in this so far. I'm sure we'll see more range from him as we go on. These first 2 episodes, it's nothing crazy in terms of kind of, the emotional aspects of it. I feel like we are going to get deeper into that character as we go forward in this season. And I'm really looking forward to see that from Jon Hamm, because we saw it from him in Mad Men, and he was... to me, I even think he was underrated in Mad Men. He won 1 Emmy Award for the series, which is insane. But I feel like people don't quite recognize how good he was in that show. So I'm hoping that he can show a little bit more of that range as we go forward in this show, because he's already great, so far. So yeah, I was really, I don't know. My expectations for this show, I guess, were pretty high, seeing Jon Hamm back on TV and seeing him in this role. And I would say they were exceeded, though, still, right? Like, I think my expectations were pretty high, maybe just a little exceeded. I do think that we could go even higher, though, with this show. I think it has a really great potential to pay off down the road. I just would like to see a little bit more of kind of a, maybe a deeper introspection, and maybe we won't get that, right? Like, maybe the show is more of that dark comedy and less of the drama. Maybe that's the way that they decide to go with it. But I would like to see a little more of kind of deeper into either, because it's kind of the story of Breaking Bad, right? It's kind of this character who, was not a criminal at all, and never did this stuff. And now he's kind of doing this, making this turn in his life and resorting to these little kind of, thefts or, robberies, right? Crimes. And so I would have liked to see, just a little deeper of a kind of, exploration of why he's Breaking Bad, now. And, maybe we see more of how he was before this happened, right? Maybe before the divorce. And you kind of set that up to where you understand, and again, like, I understand, he needs the money, but he also could just go to another job and get another job outside of kind of the finance stuff and try to make some money and make ends meet that way. I don't know. Like, it just feels like there were other options than what he's doing. And what he's doing is kind of the easy way out of things, right? And so I just wanted to see a little bit more maybe of why he's choosing that easy way out, repeatedly in these first 2 episodes, because, he does it again after the first, kind of big crime that he does. So, anyways, I just would like to see more of that, and I'm sure we will. And so I'm really looking forward to the rest of this season. And yeah, the first couple episodes, I thought the first episode particularly was great. Just a really great premiere, a great way to start off this show. So, really looking forward to this one. I do still hate the title, though, by the way. Just a terrible title. I'm not a fan of that. Like, Your Friends and Neighbors. It's so long and just, like, kind of random. I don't know. I get it, right? Like, he's stealing from his friends and neighbors, but just not great. I don't know why they went with this title, but if that's the worst, criticism that I could give the show, it obviously means that it is quite good, right? So anyways, that's what it is. Your Friends and Neighbors Season 1. Looking forward to the rest of the season for sure. And I'll get to this a little bit later on as I'll talk more about the show. But it already has been renewed for a Season 2, which is amazing. I mean, that's insane and shows a lot of confidence that Apple TV Plus has in it. So I think it's pretty clear that this season's going to be pretty good for sure. All right. So next then, our last show to talk about here from this week in TV, and that is Hacks Season 4. And this is on HBO Max, or I think it's now just called Max Original. But, when it started, it was HBO Max. Anyway, so this first episode, I only watched the premiere here of Season 4 that came out, and I thought this was a really great episode, to get us back into things. And I think maybe the best premiere episode of any season of Hacks. Maybe that's recency bias too. I haven't seen the other premieres in a few years now since they aired. But I thought this one, just firing on all cylinders. I thought the comedy was really strong. There were not really any moments of kind of comedic, relief or jokes that didn't hit for me. I thought this was really effective in that regard. I'm a little weary, though, on how, much they're playing up this divide between Deborah and Ava. At the end of Season 3, obviously the finale, it was kind of a big thing that happened at the end of the finale, but I didn't quite expect it to go this far. I expected maybe to last a few episodes or something, but the way that they set this up, especially at the end of this episode, it's heartbreaking, to hear them, Deborah never wants to talk to Ava again after late night's done. It was tough, and this episode, was really great with the kind of the antics and the back and forth, and I thought that was effective. But that last scene, this means a lot, to these characters, and so I'm wondering where that's going to go. If they're going to be able to kind of play that out for a whole season. Or maybe just a few more episodes, and then something obviously changes in the relationship. Because it is, I feel like the show is, at its best when these two characters are, because that's kind of the whole, how the show started, right? Is they were at odds, they were butting heads, and then they kind of came together and had to work together. And, that's kind of been the arc, every season of the show, if you will. Or not every season, but at times throughout the show. And, I feel like it's at its best, though, when they're together. And they're working together, and they're kind of jabbing at each other and going back and forth. And so I do want to see that again, but obviously we'll have to see where the arc goes for the season of Hacks. And I did think Season 3, similarly, I really liked the way it started. The middle point to me was a little underwhelming, and then kind of towards the end, it kind of tapered off to me a little bit, except for the finale was a big one there. And so I really hope that Season 4 is able to kind of stick through, the season here and really, keep the show at this level of the premiere of Season 4, because if it does, I think this has a chance to be the best season of Hacks that we've gotten, but we'll just have to see. I still think Season 2 is probably my favorite season, and that one to me felt a little bit more consistent throughout, the run of the season, whereas Season 3 to me, there were just some episodes in there that I thought were actually kind of disappointing. Just a lot of them had potential, and then they just kind of, withered and didn't really land for me. So really hoping that Season 4 is, could be the best season of Hacks. That remains to be seen. We'll have to see, but really looking forward, obviously, to this one. It does have a bit of a weird release schedule because they really, desperately wanted to get this in the Emmy window, right? To get, obviously the Emmy window is May 31st, which I'm a little confused on, by the way, because they're, I'm not sure that there's a strict rule for this, and maybe there is, and I don't know it, but it does seem like shows, do go over that May 31st, and I always thought that it was kind of, if the majority of the show, right, aired before May 31st, then it would count towards that year's Emmys. Again, I don't know if it's a strict rule, but just, majority of the show, and that was kind of what it was. But I'm not sure if it's changed or something, because the way that they've done the release now schedule for Hacks, it seems like they were desperate to get it within May 31st, that deadline. And so that's what they've done with the show, and so it's going to be a little strange. I think we have like 2 episodes one week, and then 1 the next, and then 1, and then another 2, and I don't know. I haven't even looked into it, but I know it's a little confusing. So anyways, that's the reason why, but nevertheless, really looking forward to the rest of Hack Season 4. And yeah, to me, I'm not really doing the Emmy schedule, right? I would just look at it as this calendar year, and to me, definitely has a chance to be one of the best comedies of the calendar year. And going to be in line for a lot of Emmys, right? I think Season 3 took away the Emmy from The Bear even, if I remember correctly, right, this last year. So, yeah, really great stuff for Hacks, and really looking forward to it for sure. All right, so that'll just about do it then for this week in TV. And, okay. Let's go to that. Stream is looking good still. gotta check and see if we're still live. We're still going. Okay, yeah, I think we're all good there. All right. So that'll be This Week in TV. And now let's get to our main topic. So we'll talk a little bit more about Your Friends and Neighbors and the success of Apple TV Plus. That's kind of what I've coined this one as. So in extension as well, I want to talk about The Studio, because I think that really kind of applies here too. So both these shows, Your Friends and Neighbors and The Studio, are both great examples of what Apple TV Plus is doing so great right now, just in the TV landscape, right? And to me, they're really doing stuff that no other streaming service or, channel, network, whatever you want to say, or whatever HBO is, right? Cable channel. No other ones are really doing, at least to the degree that Apple TV Plus is doing right now. And I'll get to HBO in just a little bit, because I want to talk about them. I'm not saying that they don't do any of this anymore. But what I'm talking about is greenlighting original projects from creative talent, mainly writers in this case, like a Jonathan Tropper in Your Friends and Neighbors, and then, Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg from The Studio, right? These are names, Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg have done a lot of stuff, Jonathan Tropper with Banshee and a few other shows, I believe, in his repertoire or in his resume there. These are guys, who had kind of original ideas or, have adapted stuff before, but they're creatives, right? And both of these shows, Your Friends and Neighbors, an original concept from Jonathan Tropper, and The Studio, an original idea, from Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. Obviously, The Studio is kind of meta. It's depicting a lot of this stuff. It's not like, a really original concept for a show or anything like that. But it is an original idea. They had that they wanted to depict a lot of this stuff and comment a little bit on Hollywood and try to do this from kind of a metafictional, lens of having Seth Rogen and Ike Barinholtz and Catherine Hahn, play these fictional characters basically in the real world, right? Just changing names and of studios and stuff like that to Continental and stuff like this, right? And so both of these shows to me that are on right now just really represent what is kind of rare in TV these days, and movies a whole nother conversation, but specifically TV, right? It's franchises, it's this already existing IP, right? Where you have reboots, spin-offs, franchise shows, all these adaptations, right? That kind of goes into that. So there's just a lot of, that, and that's really the main focus right now in TV, just countless ones, right? Like just countless adaptation of books right now. Video games is the big one. Of course, The Last of Us just premiered this week as well, season 2. Right, so adaptations, massive focus right now, and all these spin-offs like The Walking Dead is doing, AMC is doing right now. And I'll get to HBO, but they have another Game of Thrones spinoff coming up this year. So anyways, and that's not to say that, of course, Apple TV Plus is not doing the same thing. Murderbot I've seen with was Alexander Skarsgård. That's an adaptation that's coming out in the next month or so, I think. That's another one of their new shows. Silo, Foundation on Apple TV. There's countless. Bad Monkey with Vince Vaughn last year's an adaptation. Anyways, tons of stuff that Apple TV Plus is also doing in terms of existing IPs, adaptations, and this kind of thing. Although having said that, I don't know that they're doing a lot of like spin-offs of stuff like that. I don't think so, right? Because they haven't. I guess they're maybe not old enough to have these, already existing IPs that are there and, making countless spin-offs of. Are they making one of Ted Lasso, though, already? I'm trying to remember. But anyways, they're guilty of that, too. But the difference is that they also have these shows. They have Your Friends and Neighbors, The Studio, Severance, right? Another original idea. What was the other... I was just thinking of another show as well that was from there. Sugar, right? Sugar last year from Mark Protosevich, I think is his name, and then Sam Catlin maybe is the showrunner. But anyways, Mark Protosevich, the creator of Sugar, one of my favorite shows of last year as well. So they have a lot of these original projects from creative talent that have come in here and really have become, to me, the hotbed of this original, stories and original projects that they're able to greenlight here and put forward, and onto their streaming services. So obviously the reason why here is that they're able to take risks that other studios and streaming services are not, right? And to be fair, I think there is a conversation to be had of whether they can't take the risks or they also are just kind of adverse to taking the risks and want to go the safe route. But, anyways, financially speaking, right, Apple has this money printing machine, which is the smartphones, the tablets and computers and everything else, right? That's a part of their, company and their profit line. That's apart from their streaming service, right? Apple TV Plus, I think, is like operating at a huge loss, obviously, right? So far, it'll take years for it to even turn profit, right? But that doesn't matter, right? It exists basically to push the Apple name, to be competitive in the kind of streaming world, obviously, that is huge right now. And it's able to kind of put that product placement out there for their products, and basically every one of their shows. People are using iPhones very clearly. People are using MacBooks very clearly and stuff like this, right? So it helps them, but it certainly is not there focused on making profit for Apple Inc., right, the company. And so this is why they're able to take some risks on maybe these original projects that other streaming services and studios are not able to, financially speaking. But like I said, I think the other thing of this is I think they do legitimately care, or at least they brought in some people who care about having these original projects and recognizing these creative voices and these talents and bringing them in to the point where other studios and streaming services don't right now, for some reason. Again, financially, yeah, maybe they're not able to take the same risks, but I think it's also that they don't really want to take them. Right? Like, they're not really interested in that right now. They'd rather greenlight another spin-off or another franchise or another, a reboot, another, show that was popular in the 80s or, whatever, right? They'd rather do that right now because that's just kind of the trend and that's what they are wanting to do. And so it's kind of this combination where they have the financial means to do it, and I think they have some people who legitimately care about this and want to, really kind of try to push for a difference. And they're doing that with shows like Your Friends and Neighbors, The Studio, Sugar, Severance, right? And if you look at these shows, and this is the thing that always gets me, and I've talked about this on the channel, maybe I got to stop talking about it because I feel like I just go into the same, rant every time, but it's true. And that is, this idea that these original projects take time. Right? They take time to take off and really find success. And, I think Severance fits that mold, right? You saw how successful that show was this year. I mean, unbelievable success. Really owned the first quarter, or maybe even the first third, you want to call it, of this year. Like, it was the show on TV. And it's an original concept, right, from Dan Erickson. And so I think it's these, and season 1 was not received that way, by the way, right? Like, it was obviously very positive reception, and it took some time, especially those 3 years between seasons, right? It was able to kind of gain that traction, gain that support. And I think this is what you see with good original projects. It takes a little bit more time for them to really catch on, but once they do, man, they really catch on, and they can really be successful for a long time. I mean, I always use Breaking Bad as the example, right? Obviously, it took place in a different time than we are right now, but I think it really fits the mold here, where it came out, the first couple seasons, not that big, right? Like, the show really didn't become, hugely popular until like the last season, basically, of the show. And, then it went on Netflix and enjoyed that success of people watching on Netflix, all the stuff that comes with that, how popular it is now. And it was also just a really good show, right? To be the best show of all time. And so that obviously helps. And that's where the success of Severance comes from, too, because that's a really good show. Some people would say the best show on TV right now. And so I think there is something to that where you give it some time, and they do really catch on. Whereas, the reboot of this show from the 80s that people recognize, and you have this actor who we haven't seen in years coming back to play this character. I gotta watch that, right? And you get that immediate click of those of people that are nostalgic or want to relive that. Maybe you get that immediate click, you get those streams, but then you do a season 2. I'm thinking of the Frasier reboot show, right, that they did, and I think that just recently got canceled after the second season because they got some support for season 1 and then it just fell off. And that's what seems to happen is, you get a little bit more of that nostalgia. You get to see Fraser Crane again, right? Kelsey Grammer in the role maybe. And then you're like, like it was good and that's okay, like, right? And then you just kind of tune out and that's what happens. And so, they got the immediate clicks on Paramount Plus, I believe it was on. And now they have nothing to really show for it. They had to cancel the show. And so that's, again, maybe that's just, obviously there's other things that go into that. But that is what, you kind of see right now with this stuff. So I want to give credit to Apple TV Plus. I think they're doing a really great job with this. Again, they do. Already existing IPs, adaptations, all that stuff. But they're also doing the original projects. And I think they deserve a lot of credit for that. And before I talk about HBO, just briefly here, obviously the Vince Gilligan show, which is like the mammoth of all, original projects from creative voices that I'm talking about. That show is still to come later this year. Hopefully, I would think in the fall, late summer in the fall, maybe something like that. We haven't heard, a lot about it in a little bit. So it does sound like it's definitely going to be coming this year for sure, but we're not sure exactly when. But that will be coming. And again, like I said, like that is the original project from a creator like that they already gave a 2-season pickup immediately before I even a frame of it was shot, I believe. So yeah, you got to give Apple credit in that regard. And man, that is my most anticipated show of the year. So really looking forward to that. And obviously there'll be more, right? I think there'll be even more that we don't even know about yet that could probably still come out this year for Apple. That again are original projects that will see this trend continue. So yeah, I can't praise them enough. I really can't. I think they're doing a really great job, and I really respect that stuff because again, I'm a huge Walking Dead fan, right? I'm watching the spin-offs of The Walking Dead. I like some of this stuff, but I do really prefer the original projects. And to see something your Friends and Neighbors, The Studio, Severance, Sugar, that'll always excite me, right? To see something like that that's unique and see something original. I just think that's, it's more interesting, more entertaining, more enjoyable for me. So I did say I will talk about HBO. And I don't think that they're even quite keeping up with Apple TV Plus in this regard in terms of these original projects, which they were like the lighthouse, in the miles of dark sea, if you will, for that analogy. Back then, with The Sopranos, they were, that was kind of the start of the prestige television, the golden age, if you will, and they really were the starters of that. They jump-started that with The Sopranos, taking a chance on a name like David Chase and putting that on TV. Really, a really crazy risk that they took. obviously paid off, and they continued that for a long time. And at least from what we've seen so far this year and kind of their future docket of what's coming up for them, yeah, it just kind of seems like they are being dwarfed even by Apple in terms of these original projects, these unique projects. They are a lot focused on Game of Thrones right now, getting the A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms coming out. Welcome to Derry is coming out, which, by the way, I'm very excited for, obviously. But, it's an adaptation as well. I know they have Task, the new Brad Inglesby limited series coming out soon, which is an original story, obviously. But yeah, I don't know. It just seems like even them are kind of lacking a little bit, especially last year too. I mean, House of the Dragon Season 2 was their biggest show, by quite a bit last year. And so, they didn't really do a whole lot in terms of the original projects, at least that I can remember. So anyways, a little disappointing to see that from HBO, but if it is the case, if Apple TV Plus comes in and fills that gap, then I guess that is what it is. Again, I'm not throwing HBO away. I think they still have really great stuff every year and are still, among the top, again, cable networks, whatever you want to call them, at giving us original, really unique, interesting programming, where, I couldn't even say that really about AMC anymore, FX not really anymore, so it's really HBO and Apple TV Plus. But to me at this point, I think Apple TV Plus is kind of running away with it right now. So if that's your interest in more original projects and that kind of thing, that's just kind of what I'm seeing right now, and where the kind of trend is going. So yeah, we're looking forward to see what Apple TV Plus has in store for us that we don't know about yet, maybe later on this year. And what is that, Chief of War? I just talked about that with Jason Momoa. And I can't remember if that's an adaptation as well. Obviously, it's based on real events. But that's also coming up soon. I think it's June or August. I can't remember. But anyway, so that's another one, that'll be very interesting to see. So yeah, that's kind of it, I guess. Those are my thoughts, on Apple TV Plus, where things are going, and how Your Friends and Neighbors in the Studio, two shows that are really, being praised right now. And to me, I think are really great, both the shows, and, to see what they're kind of, what they're up to there with Apple TV Plus. So anyways, those are my thoughts. Of course, love to hear your guys' thoughts on, that stuff and where things are going. Oh, see, I gotta check this chat. This is something, I keep saying this, I think I said this last week too, but I gotta see this. Mobsy, it says. It says something here. Howdy, do you know you're live? Yeah, I do. Hopefully nothing has happened. I hope the audio is still good and everything. I'm not sure if you're still here, by the way, because this live chat, I gotta figure out a way to get it on the screen so I can see when the chat messages come in. So I'm not sure when you sent that, but I hope everything is good with the stream and the audio is fine, because yeah, I hope you're not pointing anything out. But yeah, I hopefully I am live and still going. But anyways, yeah, maybe that was at the beginning that you said that too, when I was checking the audio and that stuff. Anyways, okay. Hopefully everything is still good. Everything is still going well. Yeah, all right. You worried me here. You worried me that things are going wrong. It looks okay, though. It looks okay. All right. Anyways, so thank you for the comment, though. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate that. So, okay, we'll just keep going. Hopefully everything's fine. But let me know if it's not. Definitely. Let me know in the chat if anything is going on there. All right. Okay, so the next segment basically is our news topics. Again, this week there wasn't a whole lot to talk about, but I did have 3 stories that I thought were interesting, and so we'll kind of dive into those. And as always, I do have these 3 articles in the link, linked in the description, so you can go ahead and click on those and read them. Obviously, I'm not going to read all the words of all the articles, in this. So if you're interested, you can go ahead and click there. I do see another message now. I see the chat here. Okay, so Jason, what's up? Yeah, hey, Jason. That's just that was the other message. Yeah, I got to work on the chat box here and get that. I'm not sure how people do it, how they get all the messages up, but anyways, yeah, thanks for tuning in, Jason. I appreciate that. Thanks for leaving a chat. But yeah, so I guess we'll go into The Last of Us. That's the first news topic here. And definitely share your thoughts if you are in the chat on stuff about The Last of Us, or if you're just tuning in. I guess maybe you missed what I talked about, but I was just talking about Your Friends and Neighbors, the studio, some of these Apple TV Plus shows that are really doing well right now. So yeah, if you're interested in that, obviously you can kind of rewind and check that out for yourself. All right, so like I said, we'll get into the news topics then. We'll get into The Last of Us here first. So this is from Variety. The Last of Us renewed for Season 3 ahead of the Season 2 premiere. And obviously this article is from a few days ago, before the premiere technically aired on HBO this last Sunday. So the article says, The Last of Us has been renewed by HBO for a third season in advance of the premiere of Season 2. While the first season adapted the acclaimed 2013 Sony PlayStation game of the same title, the game's sequel that was released in 2020, The Last of Us Part 2, is so massive that creators Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann always planned to split its events into multiple seasons. In an interview with Variety about the 7-episode Season 2, Mazin said that he felt the series has 1 or 2 more seasons before reaching the end of Part 2. And he did say, quote, "It's getting harder to make because every episode gets big." He said, "You don't want to wait 4 years for a 17-episode finish," or whatever it is. So that's interesting, right? In a further statement with the renewal announcement, Mazin said, "We approach Season 2 with the goal of creating something that we could be proud of. The end results have exceeded even our most ambitious goals, thanks to our continued collaboration with HBO and the impeccable work of our unparalleled cast and crew." So those are some of the stuff there, and then I think Neil Druckmann, kind of obviously the game's creator, goes into it a little bit more, in the article, and saying, to see The Last of Us brought to life so beautifully and faithfully has been a career highlight for me, and there's more stuff here. So, anyways, kind of a no-brainer here, right? Like, this isn't, the sky is blue, right? It's not shocking news, obviously, that The Last of Us has been renewed for Season 3. Perhaps, maybe, I don't know if you call it shocking, but maybe surprising news about this is that it was done ahead of Season 2 even coming out, right? And so this really bodes well for the show, bodes well for Season 2, obviously, because if the product wasn't great, HBO would have maybe waited a little bit, right, to see what the reception might be, and then maybe if they, have some second thoughts about a Season 3. But this really is a good comment on Season 2, really looks like it's going to be great, and also is a big move because they already have renewed it now, and so hopefully this means less time in between seasons here, which I think also would make more sense as well, because Season 2 and 3 will be adapting the same game and the same story. And I've already seen some reviews that have stated that Season 2, I think one of the reviews specifically said it felt incomplete the way that it ends. And so, again, I have not seen it. I don't know. But it does seem, and I saw some other reviews say similar things. So it does seem like Season 2, it's kind of like these, like Dune comes to mind, or Wicked this last year, right? Those films where it ends at a point where it's very clear that a second part is coming. And so it's actually almost to the point where it's, especially with Dune, to me, it was like, okay, this is kind of an underwhelming ending to this movie. But obviously, when we see the next one, when you saw Dune Part 2, you're like, okay, I get it. I get why they did that, and it made sense, right? And so to me, I feel like that's what we're going to get here with The Last of Us Season 2 and 3. And so to kind of expedite the process and try to get Season 3 out as soon as possible after Season 2, I think would be a really smart bet for HBO. And I think they obviously see that, and that's, I think, exactly what this means, is that they're trying to get Season 3 going a little bit, quicker than the gap here between Season 1 and 2, which was, about 2 years, right, between Season 1 and 2, right, because we had, January and then April, so a little bit more than 2 years, right, between the two premieres of these seasons, and, but hopefully with them renewing, season 3 ahead of it even airing. And obviously, behind the scenes, they've probably been working on season 3 already, knowing that this was coming. So hopefully this means that next season can be even a shorter wait between season 2 and 3, and then hopefully this story can really kind of feel a little bit more complete, as it all comes together. So it is interesting that they haven't, Craig Mazin's been very kind of coy about whether it's going to be done in season 3 or they do need a season 4. And so, I feel like that's probably HBO on him a little bit. Obviously The Last of Us has been massive for them. Even just the season 2 premiere has been very successful the last couple of days, we've heard. And so, it does sound like, they would probably want a season 4 of the show. And so I think right now it's probably that, right behind the scenes, where HBO's kind of pushing him for a season 4. Is he going to be able to stretch the story for another season, or does he not want to? Is HBO going to give him the chance to not do that? I think that's kind of what's going on behind the scenes right now, and so we'll have to see. Again, I have not played the video game, so I'm not super knowledgeable on the adaptation and the story that is taking place here, and whether that story could truly be stretched for 2 more seasons. I'm not an expert on that, but that's just what I would think is going on. So anyways, they'll just do it for this news, right? That Last of Us has been renewed for season 3. Again, not shocking at all. Pretty clear that they would do it. Maybe a little bit surprising, though, that it happened even before season 2 came out. And hopefully this bodes well for a shorter time between season 2 and 3 coming out on HBO for sure. All right. So I'll do it for The Last of Us there. Again, not shocking news, right? Not shocking news, but just a little surprising. And really like to hear from fans of The Last of Us as well, especially video game players too. Because again, like I said, I have not played, and so I'm not sure on the story and how all that is shaken out there for how it's going to be adapted, right? So anyways, okay. I really got scared here from this message here. Do you know you're live? I really hope that everything is still good and nothing went wrong. I'm thinking that you maybe commented that towards the beginning when I was checking that out. But anyways, and I don't think that you're here anymore, unfortunately. So that's fine. But okay, so let's get on to the next news topic then. Keep things rolling here. So this one is from Deadline, and it is Zach Galifianakis joins AMC Silicon Valley drama. Jonathan Glatzer series gets title. So a very confusing title of this article, which has become like an insane trend now, by the way, right? Like, not to get off, topic here, but what are we doing? Like, some of these titles here, like, the way this title is phrased, right, is Zach Galifianakis joins the Silicon Valley show, and then the Jonathan Glatzer series gets title. Yeah, they're talking about the same show here, but the way that headline is wrote, if you didn't understand, that Silicon Valley, anyways, it is what it is. It's just confusing for no reason, and so it is what it is. So yes, Zach Galifianakis is joining the cast of Jonathan Glatzer's new series about Silicon Valley, and it also is getting a title. So this is a show, and these are just kind of stories in general of all these castings that I've been keeping up with on the channel here. I've talked about a few of them. I'm not sure if they've kind of made their way into formal video discussions, but on Let's Talk Television here, I've been talking about them, and even beyond this, right, just my own time looking into the show a lot. Because to me, this really is, I think, going to be a big show. It's going to be a big show for AMC, especially, with what they have right now. It's not much, right? It's, I'm trying to think of, it's at Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire. I think that's what it is. But they have that and Walking Dead right now. And maybe Dark Winds you want to throw in there too. I don't want to forget that, right? But they maybe have like a handful of shows right now that they're really running with. And so to me, an original concept from a name like Jonathan Glatzer, who wrote for Succession, really great episodes of Succession as well. I think this just has a lot of promise. I love the cast so far. We get Zach Galifianakis here joining it now, which already was announced that Billy Magnuson is playing the lead. Love that. Sarah Goldberg is playing a co-lead in it. And then who else do we have they announced some other guys. Rob Corddry, I believe. Right? Okay, so they have it listed here. Yeah, Rob Corddry is in it, which I think is like the perfect casting for this, right? It just seems like that is exactly the tone of the show that they're going for. I really loved him in Ballers. I thought he was a really great guy in that. Kind of a shorter, bald guy, right, from Ballers, who played it alongside Dwayne Johnson. Just perfect casting. And then you have Simon Helberg as well here from The Big Bang Theory. So yeah, just I love the casting so far. It just seems like a really interesting story for the show. Really looking forward to this. So Zach Galifianakis rounds out the main cast of AMC's Silicon Valley drama, headlined by Billy Magnussen. The previously untitled series will now be called The Audacity. It will be among the highlights of AMC's upfront event later today, and obviously this is a little outdated, so they had that upfront event and talked about it. The Audacity, produced by AMC Studios, is set in the bubble of Silicon Valley. It features a cast of billionaires, strugglers, dreamers, and others chasing unicorn status, maintaining marriages, microdosing in search of futuristic solutions to present-day problems, and channeling the audacity required to build a world that they are creating in front of our eyes, all while navigating the real-life issues associated with the real-world impacts of AI, big data, and the accelerating tech revolution. So that is a mouthful of information there. A very, again, though, like a lot of stuff was said, pretty vague, though, right? That is something about this show that they are kind of, I do believe that is Sarah Goldberg, I have heard, she's playing like a therapist kind of role, I think, or maybe she's like an assistant, and Billy Magnussen is our lead character. So anyways, there's some sort of dynamic going on there, but other than that, like, we don't know a lot of this. We just know, like, all this stuff. It's just set in Silicon Valley, and we are kind of tackling all these things, but how do they actually, turn into a story for the show? So that's going to be interesting to see. Galifianakis will play the major recurring character of Carl Bardolph. Wealthy beyond imagination, disillusioned beyond repair, Carl Bardolph has spent years watching from the shadows as the tech world churns forward, unimpressed by those who came after him and uninterested in returning. But when Duncan, played by Magnussen, comes to him and pulls him back into the world, Carl doesn't return as a mentor or a savior. He comes back as a problem. So interesting stuff. Again, a little bit more of that, but again, kind of vague, right? Like, kind of vague on the details here of what we're going to see. But I'm really looking forward to this. I think this is fascinating news, by the way, that Zach Galifianakis is joining this. I think he was on that show called Baskets, I want to say, on FX for a little bit, but I don't remember him being in any other shows recently other than that one, and that was already, I think, maybe 4 or 5 years ago that finished up, if I'm correct. So I think this is really interesting to see him in the show, how much of a role he'll have. I'm really looking forward to seeing that. It says he's a major recurring character, so obviously he's not going to be a star, but probably in quite a few episodes. So, and obviously a huge fan of Zach Galifianakis, to me, I think is Between the Two Ferns stuff that I've seen on YouTube is just amazing, so funny. And then obviously the Hangover movies, The Campaign with Will Ferrell, I really like him in. So he's been in a lot of good stuff, and it'll be interesting to see what he brings to this. It is, a drama, right? Silicon Valley drama. But you have names like Zach Galifianakis, Sarah Goldberg, even Rob Corddry, Billy Magnussen, like all of these, and Simon Helberg, like all of these names are very capable of dramatic storytelling, like being in those roles, right, for sure. But they all have this kind of comedic side to them. And they're really good at playing comedy. So I think there's obviously going to be quite a bit of comedy in here. I wouldn't be surprised if it's in the vein of Succession, where, again, it's this kind of balance between drama and comedy. And, we'll kind of see where it falls. But I think at the end of the day, it'll be kind of a 45-minute drama, format. But maybe there'll be quite a few laughs to be had. We'll have to see. And then it also says that the 8-episode first season is slated to premiere next year, which is unfortunate, actually, because I did really hope that this would be coming out this year. Sounds like they haven't really started production, or maybe they just have started. So unfortunately, it won't be this year. But I would think, got to be early next year, right? Like, we're only in April, so hopefully early next year, we'll be able to see this one. I'm honestly really anticipating the show. I think it's going to be really great. So it does say Galifianakis was in Only Murders in the Building. So I was wrong on that. He was in that, and I haven't seen that show. So anyways, that'll just do it then for this news. Really interesting. Again, I've been keeping my eye on this show, so looking forward to when it comes out, and if any more news is coming out about it, definitely I'll try to cover it here on the show. But I really hope I'm right about this. There is a chance, of course, that it's disappointing and it's not that great, but everything is pointing towards it being really great. So I have my hopes up for sure. All right. So that'll just do it for that one. And then lastly, let's get into our last news topic here of the show. And no new chats. Yeah, no new chats. Okay. No new chats. All right. So last one then is about Your Friends and Neighbors, if we hadn't already talked about it enough, right? So James Marsden joins Your Friends and Neighbors Season 2 at Apple TV+. And you may be thinking to yourself, Your Friends and Neighbors, the first 2 episodes of Season 1 had just premiered, a few days ago. I've already talked about it here, right? This is for Season 2, which, by the way, has, as part of this news maybe, has already been renewed for Season 2 before Season 1 even aired on Apple TV+. So that's just a really great news in multiple ways, right? It obviously speaks to the confidence that Apple TV Plus has in Season 1 and probably points to it being pretty great of a show that they want to make another one this fast before even seeing the audience reception to it, right? And it also helps because hopefully this means that Season 2 will be out hopefully next year, right? Like hopefully the kind of gap right between seasons will be shorter because they were able to, renew this ahead of schedule, right? So both great news about this, and it feels like Apple's doing this more often with their shows, and trying to renew shows quicker so that we can get less time in between seasons, which God bless. Like, that is amazing. That's one of the biggest problems, I think, with modern TV right now, and I've done a couple videos on that. Yes, really great stuff. So, anyways, James Marsden has signed on for a major role in Season 2 of Your Friends and Neighbors at Apple TV+. So it just says Apple, renewed the show in November, actually, and it aired. So they renewed the show in November 2024, and it just aired in April. So, that was what, like 5 months? 5 months in advance that they already renewed it. And it says Season 2 is now in production. So really great. I mean, this is just, icing on the cake to what I just said. Like, they're already in production. So really great stuff. And so they say Marsden is set for a series regular role in Season 2 of the show. And it says Marsden is everybody's favorite. What, you may ask? The answer is yes. He currently stars in the hit Hulu drama series Paradise, opposite Sterling K. Brown, with that show also in production on its 2nd season. And he was also in the show Jury Duty, which got a lot of buzz recently. I know him, from Westworld. I think that was one of the first things I saw him in. They say Dead to Me here. Yep, he was great in Dead to Me as well. And is he? It says he was in 30 Rock as well. I haven't seen him in that, but he was in Sonic the Hedgehog, the film. So yeah, I mean, he's just a great name, right? A great name, and I do really like him. And, when I think they go into, they kind of go into the synopsis of Season 1, so I'm not going to go into that. Again, if you're interested, check out the article for sure. But I do want to say that, to me, James Marsden fits the exact tone of the show. From seeing the first 2 episodes now, I think this is such a perfect casting for the show, to have a guy like him who can do the kind of serious, more emotional stuff, right? We've seen that from him, in a show like Westworld, I think. But even then, in a show like Dead to Me, he kind of has that comedic side to him. And it's kind of similar to me where Jon Hamm, so far, is doing that, right? It's kind of this comedic turn to some of these lines and moments that you wouldn't think on the surface would be funny, but they still manage to get that laugh out of you or kind of get that reaction. And I think James Marsden is just a perfect guy to fit in the tone of the show so far. So
I really love this casting for it. Again, we'll have to see how the rest of season 1 shakes out, but to me, I was really impressed so far with the first couple episodes. So really looking forward to where this season goes. And again, really great news that they are, like, I didn't even realize that, but they are already in production on season 2 of the show, and James Marsden is coming on board. So yeah, I think all good, just good all the way around here. James Marsden, I think, perfect for the show. And they're already in production on season 2, and hopefully we won't have to wait too long, right, between seasons here for the show. So great stuff, great to see Jon Hamm coming back to TV as well. That's been a really great, thing about the show. If for nothing else, if the show wasn't even very good, it's great to see Jon Hamm on TV again. But luckily for us, the show is pretty good so far. So kind of the best of both worlds in that regard. So anyways, love this news. James Marsden joining Your Friends and Neighbors season 2 on Apple TV+. All right, so that will just about do it then for Let's Talk Television, or at least that's all I have to talk about really for this week. And we still went pretty long actually with this episode. I thought this one might be a little shorter, but we had a couple chats in here and all that stuff, and by all means, I'm in no rush, but just didn't know that I'd have a lot to talk about. So anyways, awesome stuff here. So yeah, that'll just about do it. We went through, this week of TV. Our main topic went through all the news stuff, talk about James Marsden at the end. So that's everything. All right. So that'll just about do it then for this week of Let's Talk Television, episode 8 here. And then looking forward to next week then, like I said, I'll be doing my review for Yellow Jacket season 3. Probably Friday. That'll be up, next couple days. Just have to finish the end of it. Just have to watch the last couple episodes. So we'll be doing that review for Yellow Jackets. And, what else has been, is there anything else coming out? Not really. I think we got a little bit of a gap here, at least to me. Until Dead City comes out. Obviously, The Last of Us just dropped this weekend, though. Hacks we'll talk about next week, or next episode. More of Your Friends and Neighbors. So, yeah, Dark Winds, another one that I really want to get into and talk about, as season 3 is airing on AMC. So, anyways, lots to talk about right now. There's just so many shows and so much going on. So yeah, we'll see if any news kind of comes up and got kind of sparks anything for me. But otherwise, probably 2 weeks from now, we'll be back with another episode of Let's Talk Television. And like I said, lots of shows to talk about, and hopefully some interesting news topics come up, and we're able to cover that as well. So anyways, want to thank everybody for tuning in. We got a few people here that watch live, so really do appreciate that. And a couple comments in the chat. Mobski kind of scared me here. I really hope that the live turned out okay. But anyways, I do appreciate Jason as well saying what's up. So thank you guys for tuning in for sure. But anyways, that'll just about do it for this one. So